Orders of the day. I recognize the Government House Leader.
Thank you, Speaker. M180.
Order M180, second reading of Bill 180, an act to proclaim Somali Heritage Week. Mr. Hassan.
Recognize the member for York South Weston.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. I move second reading of Bill 180, an act to proclaim Somali Heritage Week.
Pursuant to the order of the House passed September 14, 2020, I am now required to put the question. Mr. Hassan has moved second reading of Bill 180, an act to proclaim Somali Heritage Week. Is it the pleasure of the House that the motion carry? Carried.
Second reading of the bill, deuxième lecture du projet de loi.
I'll recognize the member for York South Weston once again.
I move third reading of Bill.
Orders of the day. Day is. I have to call orders of the day again. I apologize. Government House Leader.
Is it M180? M180.
Order M180, third reading of Bill 180, an act to proclaim Somali Heritage Week. Mr. Hassan.
Member for York South Weston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move third reading of Bill 180, an act to proclaim Somali Heritage Week.
Mr. Hassan moved third reading of Bill 180, an act to proclaim Somali Heritage Week. I recognize the member for York South Weston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm honoured to rise today, this morning, as Member Provincial Parliament for the great riding of York South Weston, the decent and hard-working people of York South Weston, and the official opposition critic for youth engagement, to speak in support of my first private member's bill, Somali Heritage Week Act, Bill 180. I'm excited to address this morning the members of this House. Whether Ontario has been your family's home for generations, or if you are the first Ontarian in your family, the Somali Ontario community has much to take pride in and to celebrate. Declaring June 25th to July 1st, Somali Heritage Week in Ontario sets out to just that. I would like to thank the many people who have devoted a great deal of time and energy to advocating for this bill, including collecting petitions, signatures, and sharing their personal stories. I would like to give a special thanks to many community leaders who have supported this bill. I would also like to thank my colleagues who have been so supportive of Bill 180. Finally, I would like to thank several individuals and organizations for the endorsement of this bill. Somali Workers Network, Abdi Yusuf, Treasurer of Canadian Union of Postal Workers, Local Toronto, Shukri Abdullahi, journalist and community leader, Abdullahi Bare, a community organizer, Farah Issa, a lawyer, Mariam Ahmed, student leader, Dr. Ahmed Ilmi, academic, Mahad Yusuf, executive director of the Medenta Community Services, Omar Warsame, guidance of Canadian Somali Youth, Abdul Razak Ali, Toronto Development Association of Youth, Today, Abdi Fatah Ismail, and Leila Aidid of the Hila Beauty Natural Inc. The spirit of Canada's greatness has always been the diversity of its people. Canada has gained immeasurably from the strength of its First Nations to the more recent immigrants and refugees who have come to its shores. These people have brought their culture, their traditions, and their values. The Somali community in Ontario is part of this legacy, and by proclaiming the last week of June 25th through July 1st as Somali Heritage Week, if passed, would officially recognize June 25th to July 1st as Somali Heritage Week in Ontario. As Somali Heritage Week, the province of Ontario recognizes the economic, political, social, and cultural achievements and contributions of Somali Canadians in all aspects of Ontario's society, like many refugees and immigrants who have made Ontario their home. Somali Canadians are proud to be part of diverse communities across the province. The week-long observance also covers a time so significant in the history of the Somali community. Somalis from Somali regions in the Horn of Africa, the Greater Horn of Africa, celebrate their independence during this week, June 26, June 27, and July 1st. Today, several celebrations also take place across Ontario, in this last week of June 25th and July 1st that highlights the rich culture and heritage of the Somalis. Many of these celebrations reflect the traditions of the Somalis, which celebrate independence, liberty, and freedom. Somali Heritage Week is an opportunity to recognize and reflect on the history of the Somali regions in the Horn of Africa, its culture, and the significant contributions the Somali Canadians continue to make across Ontario. It also provides a wonderful opportunity to reflect on their contributions to Ontario. Whether Ontario has been your family's home for generations or you are the first Ontario in your family, the Somali Ontario community has so much to take pride. That is why I am asking the provincial government to proclaim June 25th to July 1st of each year Somali Heritage Week. Doing so will create an exciting opportunity to celebrate the beautiful culture, language, and history, and to recognize the many contributions of Somali Canadians in Ontario. I think it's important for me to take some time now to mention some notable Somali Canadians. This is by no means a complete list, but an attempt to provide a glimpse of the wide-ranging contributions made by Somali Canadians in Ontario and throughout Canada. Author Hassan Gedi Sador is a Toronto-based author. He published his debut novel, Something Remains, followed by Maps of Exile, an exploration of the plight of African migrants in Europe. He is currently working on his third novel, Other Worlds, Other Lives. Mr. Hassan's third novel is set to be released in a few months. Somali poet Ahmed has made his remark in the literary world as well. Somali cuisine is very popular and known for its diversity of influences. Hamdi Restaurant, established in 1996, is one of the earliest Somali restaurants in Toronto. Owners Mohamed Umar and Mahmoud Farah oversee a fine restaurant with an exquisite menu. Hamdi was previously known as Tariq in 1994. One of our community's best-known chefs is Chef Bashir Mounier. Chef Bashir has been a very good reputation as an inspirational chef and teacher, as well as being a strong advocate for local and accessible food. Chef Bashir has said that food is a vessel for understanding each other and coming together for social change. Another wonderful Somali eating and socializing experience comes with a visit to Star, owned by Somali entrepreneur Mohammed Ilmi. Mohammed's mother, Stalin Ali Mohammed, first opened Star Restaurant in 1999, determined to create a business that belongs to her community. In 2012, Ilmi took over the business as his mother moved to other ventures. Star continues to be an official civic center when at the restaurants and adjoining venue space, wedding rehearsals, dinners, youth job fairs, and festivities for Somali Independence Day take place. The international modeling world has many Somali Canadians. Uba Hassan is a Somali Canadian model. She worked with a number of top designers and is also involved in philanthropic work. Nicole Jasretsko, daughter to a Somali mother and a Polish father, Nicole had a brief but successful international modeling career. Nicole stopped her career to pursue higher education, medicine to be specific. She graduated from McMaster's University, is now a medical doctor in general surgery at the University of British Columbia with a focus on global health, diversity, and evidence-based practice. Idil Saleh and Ebla Ahmed Osman come to mind as well as supermodel Yasmin Warsame, who has been featured in Vogue magazine and has been a runway model for some top brand campaigns. We have much to be proud of in Somali Canadians' involvement in the artistic community. Faro is a Canadian pop and R&B musical duo consisting of Somali Canadian sisters Siham and Imam Hashi. From my riding of York Southwestern, they have been making waves ever since the release of their track Rule the World, a jazz-infused pop anthem in 2013. The sisters are the first female artist of Somali Canadian descent to sign to a major record deal with a major US label. In addition to their musical career, the sisters are involved in charitable work through their non-profit foundation. Amal Noor is a Somali Canadian singer from Toronto who crafts soulful R&B tunes, uncovering the depths of her fine-tuned voice. She's very much a self-made artist following an independent career path and utilizing social media as a making tool to propel her music in global stratospheres. About her musical release, Black Dove, she had this to say: "We are not going to allow society or culture to restrict us on what we can and cannot do. And I'm not in that place anymore. That is what Black Dove is. Black Dove is stepping out of that place that I put myself in and that society put me in. So I'm free now." Poet and rapper Kenan has stayed connected in my riding of York Southwestern and has had great success. In 2010, the optimistic track Waving Flag, already a hit in Canada, was made as a celebrity stewed single to benefit victims of the earthquake in Haiti. Another version of the song, a remix by Kenan, became the official anthem of the Coca-Cola 2010 World Cup campaign. Of the renewed Somali-Canadian artists include Ladan Hussein, Suleika Ali, and Dominic Salol, also known as Moki, a singer, music producer, songwriter, and composer. In the sports world, Somali-Canadian Mohammed Ahmed from St. Catharines is a Canadian long-distance runner. Ahmed won the bronze medal in the 5,000 meter at the 2019 World Athletics Champions in Doha, the first Canadian medal in the event, and is a two-time silver medalist at the Commonwealth Games in the 5,000 and 10,000 meter events. Ahmed completed at 2012 and 2016 Summer Olympics. He also ran the 11th fastest indoor 5,000 meter in history in Boston in 2017, setting the Canadian national record in the process. Ahmed gave all Canadian runners, regardless of age or ability, a reason to believe that we too in this country can do the distance. He proved that Canadian athletes are now in the mix over the long haul at these World Championships. Mohammed Ahmed showed Canadians are players in distance running. Giving back to the community while helping others is something Somali Canadians contribute in a big way. One such community activist is Hamiltonian Sarah Jama. Sarah is a co-founder of the Disability Justice Network of Ontario and works at the Hamilton Centre for Civic Inclusion as a program coordinator. Sarah Jama is also known widely for her work on anti-racism, disability rights, and social justice. The work for social justice and strengthening our communities is done by many Somali community organizations that have been established in Ontario that offer individuals and families such programs as youth drop-in centres, legal advocacy and elder programs, job assistance and aid in navigating the often difficult world of filling out government forms is just some of the assistance these Somali Canadian community organizations offer. They are truly a necessary community hub. I am proud to have the support of many individuals and organizations, and I would like to take a few minutes to share with you why these organizations are supporting my effort. I have spoken to countless leaders about this bill: Somali Heritage Week, Abdi Yusuf, Treasurer, Canadian Union Postal Workers, Toronto Local, Recording Secretary of the Toronto York Labour Council, and member of the Somali Workers Network, sent me a statement in support of this bill, which reads, "Somali Heritage Week will mean a lot to me and the Ontarians who are originally come from Somalia and their children. It is a continuation of celebration of the contribution that the Somali Canadian made to the province. It will also give a sense of belonging and will boost the morale of future generations." Likewise, Dr. Ahmed Ilmi is an academic and recipient of the first University of Toronto's Professor's Postdoctoral Fellowship to be awarded at the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education, and his fellowship is in the Department of Social Justice Education, where he has been teaching graduate courses since 2015. Dr. Ilmi is a leading scholar in Somali Canadian diaspora and the author of Say Wallahi Generation, Profiling, Tradition and Survival from Somali Canadian Perspective, and sent me a statement in support of this bill, which states, Somali Heritage Week in Ontario firmly recognizes the important contributions of Canadians of Somali descent in Canadian society and celebrates a unique heritage with roots in Somali, but that is distinctly Canadian. Somali Heritage Week not only tells a story of arrival, but it also tells a larger story about community hopes and dreams. Mariama Ahmed, student leader, endorsing in this bill, states, as Somali Canadian, I will benefit from a Somali Heritage Week because it will instill a sense of pride in myself and it will foster more connection with the Somali community. As an Ontarian, Somali Heritage Week would add more values, traditions, and aspirations to Ontario's diverse provincial identity. Farah Isse, lawyer, sent me a statement in support of this bill, which reads in part, I support the bill because it aids in the recognition of the significant contributions that Somali community has made in all spheres of Canadian society. The Somali community has a strong presence in Ontario, particularly in the GTA and Ottawa region. As a large ethnic minority group, the Ontario government should recognize the culture and the role that this entrepreneurial community plays in our society. I believe that this bill will help in this regard. Shukri Abdullahi, journalist and community leader endorsing this bill, states Ontario's opposition party, the NDP, recognize and are tabling to have Somali Heritage Week ending on July 1st, a Canada Day, which is also Somali's Independence Day. We invite you to come and see what makes up our rich culture, which helps explain the process of founding and incorporating cultural identity into our lives. As Ontarians, since diversity is our strength, by implementing productive policies, supporting one's heritage and identity, we can all have a more inclusive and prosperous Ontario. Abdullahi Barre, a community organizer, sent a statement in support of this bill, which reads in part, the Somali Heritage Week bill is very important for our community. Once the bill is passed, we would be able to show Canadians our way of living from generation to generation, including our customs, practices, places, arts, as our overall values. Sarah Jama is a community activist and co-founder of the Disability Justice Network of Ontario and works at the Hamilton Centre for Civic Inclusion. Sarah had sent a statement in support of Somali Heritage Week and states, Somalis in Canada have struggled with double-edged sword of anti-black racism and xenophobia in this country, while also carrying the intergenerational scars of civil war and imperialist-fueled displacement from our homeland. Through all this, we have found ways to continue to give back to this country, contribute to the economic and impact culture in ways that will forever be defined through our dialect and poetry. Somali heritage is a testament to this and more. Hawa Mire is a critical writer, columnist, and commentator that has been featured on Maclean's, Period Dispatch, Magazine, Metro Morning, Rebel, among others. In 2017, she completed a master's degree in environmental studies from York University, where her research examined community storytelling as a place of transformation. She sent me a statement in support of this bill, which reads, the richness of Somali culture, heritage, storytelling, food, and other traditions have found their way into all aspects of Toronto, especially in my riding of York Southwestern. The addition of Somali Heritage Week will only serve to celebrate the oft-forgotten achievements and successes of this vibrant community, embedding us deep into the fabric of Ontario. A bill like this is momentous and offers a moment we can all be proud to look back on as a key moment in history. I'm proud to be Somali Canadian today and all days and celebrate Somali Heritage Week. Our heritage provides clues to our past and how society has evolved. It helps us examine our history and traditions, enables us develop an awareness about ourselves. It helps us explain and why we are who we are. Somali Heritage Week will give us the opportunity to highlight and celebrate the achievements of Somalis in all fields and talents. During this week, we should acknowledge and accomplish of Somali community who have risen outstandingly in spite of their challenges and obstacles, and spread the knowledge that comes from every individual's success story. Somali Heritage Week will allow us to raise awareness about determined Somali-Canadian trailblazers who accomplished so much in this province. Somali Heritage Week would add more values, traditions, and aspirations to Ontario's diverse provincial identity. As Canada's first Somali community, as Canada's Somali community continues to grow, and we must come together to rejoice the rich heritage of the Somali Canadians. I urge your support of my bill establishing Somali Heritage Week in Ontario. Mr. Speaker, the word heritage brings, Madam Speaker, the word heritage brings to mind different ideas for different people, and it should. Heritage is person's unique. The values, traditions, cultures, and artifacts handed down by previous generations. We observe a sense of our heritage throughout our lives as we observe our family, as we observe and experience the things that make our family unique. Our heritage is our inheritance. What the past has conceded to us, what we value in the present, and what we choose to present for future generations. Heritage is the full range of our inherent traditions, monuments, objects, and culture. More important, it is the range of contemporary activities, meanings, and behaviors that we draw from them. Madam Speaker, I welcome members' their comments and views, and I urge that your support for my bill of establishing Somali Heritage Week in Ontario. I welcome your comments. Thank you kindly.
Further debate?